Hello and welcome to the Home Screen Podcast. This is episode 16 and today I'm joined again by Ben.
How are we doing? All right.
Good. So today we're going to be discussing Piece by Piece. We saw this as the closing night gala for the London Film Festival. We saw this at the Home Cinema in Manchester. It's really cool, lots to discuss. For those that don't know, this is essentially a Lego documentary, sort of a biopic, pretty much just a standard documentary about the musical artist and producer Pharrell Williams, but the catch is that this is told entirely in Lego animation, of the similar likes of the Lego Movie 1 and 2, Lego Batman movie, Lego Ninjago movie. It's that very much like stop motion type animation that's very clearly CG, but yeah, is made to feel very stop motion. So yeah, we saw this. I think we both liked it as part of the London Film Festival. I think it comes out in cinemas in like 2 or 3 weeks. So yeah, what did you think of Piece by Piece?
Really impressive, as of visual sort of storytelling experience. Just different, definitely an artistical choice by Pharrell Williams himself. Just amplified the experience for me because obviously I'm quite an avid Lego fan as well. So much more engaging, to look at. Obviously, then with it being musically inclined, to listen to. Generally, just really, really cool storytelling.
Yeah, I think it never really let up with there was never any dips. Obviously, it's talking through the peaks and troughs of his career and motivation as an artist. But yeah, it was thoroughly engaging throughout. I tried to write a few notes down, but it's kind of, with it being a doc, I wouldn't say it's less thought-provoking because it's very thought-provoking about him, and we can delve into sort of him and his psyche and his personality, but more just about the actual presentation. The film's just so full of joy and just bursting with creativity. I was so impressed. And it's really unique, and something we were talking about a little bit is the fact that it's Lego animation never really feels like a gimmick. I think it's a very deliberate choice to tell the story in this medium.
He says in, I think it was one of the, right at the top of the film, right at the start, he says, "What if my documentary was Lego?" He said, I pulled up a quote when we were having a flick through before. He wanted it, it was a creative choice by him. It came from him all the way from the top. It's I want this to be a Lego film. I just sort of find out in the actual movie itself. I think it's it's his connection to music, and it's to me, music is playing with Lego, sort of taking bits apart and reassembling it and putting things together. And he speaks about it at length in the film, the way his connection with music, his relationship with the music.
He says, was it synesthesia, where he almost sees colours and experiences music as colours in different ways.
Yeah. But again, I think really, really cool artistic choice to sort of put it from that point of view. A standard biopic would have been really interesting if you were a fan of Pharrell or a fan of sort of the genre of music that's hip hop, NERD, that sort of stuff. But also, yeah, just really cool the way it was just sort of pushed to that perspective and told through that lens. Really, really. I don't want to use the word fun. It was fun, but fun just seems derivative.
I think it's such the choice to do it in this style is just so baked into the film's DNA. Yeah. It was never an afterthought. They didn't start shooting a doc and then they're like, wait, this would be a good idea. It seems from its conception of the idea, this was how it was meant to be.
Yeah, he wrote it down day one as if I'm going to do this, this is how it needs to be.
And it just felt so natural, similar to how a Studio Ghibli anime film is hand-drawn animation, and Aardman will use claymation for Wallace and Gromit. This just felt so I didn't question it. There was never a point where I was why is this happening like this?
No, you completely just skip over it. I mean, I think we spoke as well, how the way it's shot, some of the footage is definitely it's been shot in live action and then it's been used as reference.
Yeah.
But just noticing that in comparison to the previous sort of Lego films that have come before, particularly with I've only really seen at length the 2 Lego movies. You can tell with that deliberately they've sort of put smudge marks and fingerprints on the faces, so it really mimics that stop motion feel, someone's every frame moving the Lego characters. Yeah. You still get that characteristic with this one, but there's none of that sort of age to the characters. Everything just looks brand new, out of the box, vivid, colourful, larger than life. Which I think is it's just such a cool I can't put into words at the minute, but it's just such a cool concept.
It's at the heart of the film. It's the root of the film is this idea, and I think subconsciously it's it's such a clever way as well, because with it being Lego, it makes the whole film feel very like kinetic and very like vibrant and snappy and fun, and it keeps you transfixed more, and you're almost stimulates the audience's creativity.
Yeah.
And that like you're hearing about how this guy just bursting at the seams with creative energy, and he was just this like icon that everyone was just like just in awe of how this creativity came about. And as you're watching this, I found myself at points zoning out of the narrative a little bit and just being like, this is just so cool, like thinking, how do they animate this scene with all these moving parts?
Yeah.
And I think, in twofold, that you're drawn into his story of creativity, but also you're also watching a story of creativity with just how it's animated. I think it was such a clever approach.
I think one thing that really impressed me about this as well is how obviously everything's made out of Lego bricks, but like with scale.
Yeah.
So obviously no like massive spoilers, but there's a scene with Spock in it, like really short scene with Spock. Or like Carl, I think it's Carl Sagan. He's in the scene. He's bigger than Pharrell. Pharrell is just like, a standard minifig, but like they're much bigger. And it's like how rather than just sort of being, it's a minifig, but it's like blown up because for artistic narrative they're bigger.
Yeah.
It's been built out of smaller Lego pieces to mimic it looking like a minifig, but it's bigger and it's built out of like individual. Like it's almost like someone there and they're meticulous with this, the Lego group in general, with like games, films, everything. If there's something that doesn't exist in a set, they'll employ someone to build it. Yeah. So it's actually been built out of Lego bricks.
And that even applies...
And you can see that is just there with that, like, so much.
That even applies to, like, quick insert shots. Like, there's a shot of him walking down the runway, and then it when he's talking about, is it Billionaire Boys Club? And they're talking about, like, his clothing lines and stuff when he's more established.
Just starts, like, endorsing, like, everything.
And he'll be, like, walking down the runway, and it'll then pan down to a shot of his shoes, and then there'll be these bigger sets of his shoes walking, not just, like, his Lego figure... like ends of his stubs of his legs, like.
Oh yeah, I remember. Yeah.
They throw in a few insert shots here and there are more meticulously detailed by using bigger sets.
Well, it's like when you see people sort of like almost of like chucking product at him.
Yeah.
Like the shoes are like 2x1, like rounded 2x1 tiles with like the shoe print on the top.
Yeah.
From the top. But then obviously like when he's wearing them, it's like sort of like a print on the feet of the minifig, and I think it's just like it's definitely been thought about, like even the way that like the postures are, like with the way the arms move, because like you like pose a minifig, like the arms go up and down and the arm is set at a particular angle. You can like articulate the hands.
Yeah, it stays true to like the reality of Lego. It's not like the arms and legs on.
Yeah, like it pushes the boundaries a little bit, but like it's not suddenly like Snoop Dogg. He was saying like Snoop Dogg is like really tall like, in the interview that is, and then like when it shows like the shot of him like when he's creating Drop It Like It's Hot, and like you see him like dancing in the music video. He's like physically he's taller than Pharrell, but like it's the same minifig except like you can just see like an extra stack of like a 1x1 brick.
Like studs on the bottom.
Yeah. I just think it's just like everything, like nothing happens sort of coincident. I feel like nothing happens coincidentally. Nothing's not been thought about.
Yeah.
Which is like even down to like the outfits that he wears. Like you can see like the outfits that he wears. And it's like Billionaires Boys Club, like one of his brands with like the I think it's like a spaceman he has on it.
Yeah.
You actually look at the icon on the like it looks like it's printed. You can see like that texture, but then like it's not just a print that's been pulled off the t-shirt. Like the spaceman is like a Lego man.
Yeah.
Like it's so meticulous in its detail. From like like there's a scene where he's looking through records. All of the record covers are like recreated. So like if there's any like there's Michael Jackson, he's on the front of it anyway, but like it's a Lego version of Michael Jackson. It's just the amount of detail that went to it is just like it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna stop gushing over. Like,
No, it's fine.
Lego now.
I just did a quick Google search. So the film's production spanned around 5 years.
Oh wow.
Which is
so
like
I think we were talking about it in the on the way back. Like it's maybe 2 years. Like
Yeah.
it got mentioned a couple of years back. There was like a couple of like teaser posts, and it's like, oh, Pharrell Williams is doing a biopic. It's gonna be Lego, and you're like, what?
Yeah, and that goes back to the conversation of like gimmick or not a gimmick, and yeah, like it definitely was not, and it definitely sounded it at first. It's like, well, I don't quite know how this is going to work, and it very clearly does. 5 years is such an insanely long time for the production, but it totally makes sense with how detailed it was. One thing we talked about a little bit, but like we were sort of wondering if there was any reference footage at any point, and there are scenes that are shot in a very like handheld nature. And it's kind of like, do you reckon like the interviews to camera, do you reckon they shot as reference footage, or even just as like never with the intention of it being used, like without having
Just
the
like
interview,
research gathering.
without having the interview and just like little, I don't know, like gestures and just little things of like him drying his eyes and like them just like going back and forth and stuff. I guess there would have been a camera rolling for things like that. Like I think when they're interviewing Gwen Stefani, when she goes and tells like the gardeners to be quiet, and they're interviewing someone else and they're eating popcorn and things. And
yeah, I think that it does at its core as well. It's like you've got to praise like it's a Lego movie. Lego is supposed to be fun and vibrant, and they definitely double down on that. Like it's not sort of like they've not just like interviewed people and it's just, oh, here's Gwen Stefani as like a Lego like minifig, or like, you know, Kendrick Lamar or Snoop. They're not just sat there like them as a Lego figure that's like, oh, pick out what you want to wear, and then they just sort of sit there, and it's like the way it sort of plays in like things like that, you know, like obviously they'll have recorded that, I imagine. And Gwen Stefani's like, oh, you know, there's people like, we got the gardeners, and then she'll have like disappeared for 5 minutes, just be like,
And then they'll add it in to
cut it out.
really
But then like the way it's sort of like added into the film, you see it sort of like run off screen, and then she's like in the background, and you know, like there's no sound, but she's sort of like waving about, and then like the two gardeners like look over, and then they just like disappear. And she's like, okay, we've got it, we've got quiet now. Like it's fun, and this like vibrant nature is like just at the core of this story, which is it suits it down to the ground. It's brilliant.
I think like Lego has always just been inherently just like comedic in terms of physical comedy. Like going back to like the old Lego games, Lego Star Wars, Lego Batman, Lego Indiana Jones. And
like
stuff
when there was like no audio.
There was no audio. There was just grunts and like just using physical comedy,
storytelling without.
And it's just so like slapstick and blunt, funny, PG like humor, and how that that's carried forward. Obviously, there's like writing gags and visual gags in like the Lego movies and Batman and stuff, but like I think Lego is just inherently, you can make a lot with it, but it is stiff. They are just solid bricks, and like minifigures are just stiff at the end of the day. How you can achieve a lot of comedy through that, and I'm just glad that it translated across. Like they could have made this too fluid and too polished and it wouldn't have worked, but the fact that it remained some of that rigid nature.
Yeah, it's like almost true to the brand that is Lego.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. I found like one interesting thing that I found, like you're saying, like returning to sort of like the footage. You can definitely tell in certain aspects that like it's just an audio recording that they have like set a scene to.
Yes.
There's some things where you like, it's like, would you call it found footage, or like, you know, it's been recorded on a camcorder or something.
Yeah.
You can tell from the way that it moves from like a scene where he's being, you know, like a much more visual scene where he's sort of like being whisked off, and then like there's some massive fish, or like he's in space, or to something like that where it's like you can tell it's almost like someone like Chad or himself is like holding the camera, and there's almost that sort of like little blur or like fuzziness to it that you would find in sort of like camcorder footage like that.
Yeah.
So the difference between, like you say, your more polished and fluid scenes to sort of like something that you would come to expect from a biopic where it's sort of like found footage that's sort of chopped and edited into this larger narrative. Even though it's Lego, you can tell the difference there, which is like it's staged so true to Lego as a brand and an identity, but it's also like very true to biopics as well. And like I say this probably every episode, that one, it toes the line between the two things so well.
It does. When people say biopic, you think of like Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, Straight Outta Compton and such, where it's like a dramatization, retelling based on true events of the lives. But there is kind of room for extra drama and villainization of certain characters and things.
Yeah.
And
There's always a narrative to sort of like look at, especially with like your more fictionalized, but dramatizations like, you know, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, and Straight Outta Compton.
And I think this would fall more into this is more of a doc than a biopic. But I think that then, because it's his retelling it, that they can still add like an up and down narrative arc of when he chooses to say about his downfall and then choosing to talk about happy and stuff and how they structure it. So even though it is a true doc, because it's him just recounting his life, they still have a bit of creative control as to where they put the beats. Like they get to choose, where's the end point going to be? Like, do we end it with when he writes happy, or do we end it with like his more modern things and like after the Black Lives Matter movement and his collaborations with Kendrick and things? I think it was quite interesting to see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that if you're in control of the telling of the story, there's obviously a few things that you can be skipped over or like, you know, when we watch Supersonic, something I didn't say in the episode, but like during that height of the career, you know, when they did like up to the 2 nights when they did Nebworth, Supersonic as a documentary completely skips over that rivalry that they had with Blur. Like that's, you know, like the whole thing with Tony McCarroll, that sort of being a bit of a dark day with the way he was sort of like ousted from the... That is barely even touched on in that documentary because it's written from the perspective of the Gallagher brothers. I feel like you have a little bit more I think like Snoop actually says it in one scene. He's just sort of like, oh, that was Pharrell on the phone. Like he's just asking me like what I need to lie about. So it's not that there's anything to hide there, but I feel like there is, because it is his story and he's sort of like executive producer at the helm of this almost. He can, like you say, he picks the beats, and with that said, it never at any point feels biased or like he's blowing smoke up his arse or anything. It's always so elevated and fun and out of this world, but at the same time so grounded, because like you say, it's just a kid from Virginia who was originally seen as a bit odd and then just, you know, took it to the stratosphere with like some of the people he's collaborated with and like what he's done with his career, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I think that like it's good that he also shows. It needs to be a rounded picture, so I'm glad that he also shows like
The lows.
like not his downfall, but where he kind of became like a bit creatively spent, and where he became, because he just expanded out into doing more brand stuff, and how it took his focus away from his music. Then he came back to it, and he wasn't quite as sharp as he used to be. And
it's almost like you just wanted to do everything. You sort of like, the world's at your doorstep. What do you do?
Yeah.
Like he says, like he repeats so many times. It's like he wants to do hip hop. He wanted to be his own artist, but like he was producing hip hop, and like sort of like, if you look at Pharrell, like, a lot of people said it, like he doesn't look like he comes from the streets or whatever, but he's so good at producing those tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
And you look at his rap sheet, like the people that he's like produced for, like it's you know, it's absolutely crazy. Like I think other than like the stuff he released with like NERD, like his band, I think he's only got like 1 or 2 albums that he's like actually like released himself.
Yeah, I guess it was he had to pick and choose bits.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say like the runtime of the film, you can only fit so much in there, and it's sort of like what's gonna play well, I guess, like what's gonna be a good story to tell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very glad that they kept the Daft Punk stuff in there though, because that was
cool. Yeah. And there's like, because I'm not super familiar with his discography and everything he's done. Like, obviously, there's a lot of things in his more modern stuff of like Get Lucky and Happy and his stuff with Kendrick, and like I'm aware of some of his more modern things, and I'd heard his name, but like his much earlier stuff, with collaborating with like Jay-Z and Justin Timberlake and people, I was like, I've been completely off my radar. So it was, I knew he'd been around as a producer and a bit of an industry titan, but I wasn't aware of what he'd done, and especially not of how he got started. So it was really cool to actually see like his origins.
Yeah, coming in sort of like not blind, but sort of coming in sort of like not really knowing much. I feel like a lot of people like know Pharrell Williams, but it's like his collaborations with like Adidas or things like that, because he is a bit of a mogul. You know, he's expanded his career. He's not just a producer. He's not just a musician. He does an awful lot of, a lot of stuff in like the streetwear space and like elsewhere. Yeah. But like, it's good to sort of see like him paying homage to his roots of sort of like, this is my. I'm not saying you can only have one passion, but like that's
like the lane he chooses.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that I thought was quite cool that I've only just kind of been thinking about more recently is how the film cleverly shows sound, how the film illustrates sound through a very visual medium of Lego. Like, not just by the soundtracks, but like when he's younger and staring into like the boombox and like the synesthesia.
There's like swirls, but they're like made up of Lego. It reminds me of, like one scene in Ratatouille when he's trying to describe like the scents and the sounds and the tastes, and he eats the cheese, and the cheese is like swirls, and then he eats the strawberry and it's like pops, and then it fades. And then he combines them. It's like that, except they've done it with Lego pieces.
Yeah,
like
it's really cool how they've done it. And also like with him, the kind of running motif of him making beats is almost like when he's like trying to sell beats to people, these little like small Lego contraptions like made of like 2 or 3 pieces.
The wedges, and he like puts them together.
Like wedges and studs and things, and they kind of like
glow,
booping around. Yeah, almost like the closest thing MacGuffin I can think of is kind of like core memories in Inside Out, where they're kind of like stored when he's going.
It's a physical thing.
Yeah, and I think was a really cool idea to show.
I mean,
like that.
It would have been like so much more sort of like on the nose to just like have like a 2x1 flat tile with like a tape.
Yeah.
This is a track. It's how they've pushed that. And like, I think there's this scene where he's sort of talking about like, I sat on nothing ever goes to waste, basically. Like, he'll sit on a beat, and if it doesn't do something for him right then, it's just sort of like, it goes into like the locker,
like
and it
vault,
just, and it's just him just literally walking around like a room, and he like takes stuff out, and it's just him like playing around with like, obviously like little snippets of previous tracks and beats that he's made that have not done the job there and then, but then he sort of like combined them to make something new. And again, it's so similar to how you like look at, I think he says at one point with Lego, it's sort of like everything already exists. All you can contribute it's how you see these building blocks almost, and how you put them together. It reminds me slightly of the scene in A Star Is Born. Oh, what's the old fella called? Sam Elliott. And he says like all any musician can contribute is 12 notes. It's just 12 notes, and then the octave repeats, and like that. All any artist can contribute is how they see that. And it's sort of like the same flavour as this, but like obviously in a much more grandiose scale, sort of like everything's already been created. It's just how you reinterpret, and it's just how close that is to like Lego's mantra of explore, build, play. It almost sort of like not in a cringe way, but it almost sort of feels like an endorsement of Lego. Like I want to go home now and like build shit.
I do want to build some of the sets I've just
You've got
lying around for ages.
This man has got stacks
I've
of
had
Lego
sets for
outside.
ages, and I mean, I've always like when I was like a kid, every birthday, every Christmas, like I would always ask for Lego sets. I would always like had a subscription to Lego magazine. I would always go to Toys R Us and just look around sets. That was where all my pocket money went. So I've always had such a soft spot and just like love the creativity of it. And yeah, I just love how it's mirrored with his creativity of how he views music as just this way of playing. Like, because he was just so bursty, especially when he was coming up, and I think it was in school when he got his first record deal, and it was like him and his band, and they stood up because it was something that they'd never seen before. It was like a wild freestyle of him like rapping, then singing, then hopping on the drums, and him not being afraid to play and like mess around and combine stuff that hadn't been combined before. Isn't it? Yeah, his fearlessness in experimenting was his success. Again, I've said it so many times, but just it really mirrors perfectly like Lego. Like, it's just the best choice for it.
I mean, do you feel like, I don't want to get too deep, but as, you know, like in your career, you know, just outside of this now, like as a creative, you know, the daily 9 to 5, you sort of employed to sort of like clock in, do a job, clock out, you know, just sort of crack on, you know, it repeats. Do you feel like when you were honing your craft, things like university, or when it was just, I say just a hobby, but when it was just something that you were really interested in or something that you wanted to do,
Well, it was more of a passion than
you had, I mean, I'm not saying that it can't be, now it's a job, it's not a passion, you know, like I'm a firm believer in you do something that you love, you'll never work a day in your life, that kind of thing, you know, but enjoying the process, you know, like just messing around, and I feel like he did that so well, and it's almost like having the opportunity to do that and not sort of letting that spark die, because you can happily just sort of like I'll settle here, I'll leave that, and in any sort of creative format I'll settle here, you know, and you just sort of keep going and you stop pushing yourself and wanting to learn more and just take everything that's put in front of you, just take it, and like a sponge basically.
Yeah, and I think it I guess is important to like do your craft, and if you're good at it then keep at it, but also like one for them, one for me, like to keep doing stuff for you, to remind yourself of why you do it for fun, like why your love for whether it's graphics or photography or music or video editing or something that's not creative, like whether it's like an actual craft, is to like, I think it's important to remind yourself to play with it and to do stuff, to use your skills for your own enjoyment, not just for the paycheck.
Yeah.
And like he did in this, like he would.
So the section where I think it's just after his grandma passes, but he starts feeling the burnout, and he's sort of like, he's almost trying to push through it, and he's like, oh, like here's an album that's like, I can't remember what it is. I think it just says on like the record label, it's just like Pharrell, but it's like in the key of sexy or something.
Yeah.
And like the producer's like halfway through the song, he's like, just stop playing it. And it's like, it's relatable as a creative. It's relatable in the sense of sort of like, you can't just stop. You have to sort of keep going. But there's going to be times where like looking back, or you look back at like old work or like periods of your life. Maybe it's a particular job or a particular project where you're in the room, but you're not there. Like the stuff that you're putting out is just, it's not hitting the mark. And then there's other stuff, and it's like time flies by because everything just sort of, forgive the pun, falls into place. Everything clicks piece by piece, and then it's just there. And it's almost like it was fully formed. You're just sort of following instructions from somewhere, and it's just there. So it's relatable in the sense of like sometimes there is that sort of sense of creative burnout. And I think that is shown in the film quite well. Yeah,
and I think it's like important to show that like burnout happens to everyone, even like people like absolute like industry titans like him. It is a natural part of it.
It's almost dangerous, isn't it, to sort of like portray that mentality of sort of like, the reason I'm successful is because I wake up at like 4 o'clock in the morning, I go to the gym, I do this, I do that, and then I'm working from, you know, when I get in from the gym at 5:30 till 10 o'clock at night, and then like I don't look at my phone, and I don't eat this, or I don't watch this, I don't watch TV, I'm not on social media, and then I go to sleep and the day repeats. It's just sort of like, that sounds great, but like that's not like the key to success. Sort of, you have to show that it is, like you say, it happens to everyone, and it's part of the process. I just think that it does that really, really well. Like it shows the highs, and they're not really lows, but it shows his successes, but it also showcases, his shortcomings.
And I think normalizing and just showing that like even people at the top of the game will have, you're never going to be on your A game forever. But like, just if you, even if you think you're in a bit of a dip, not just be like, that's it, I'm done with this. It's just like, it just happens. You'll make some duds, you'll make some gems, but just keep making for the love of making and playing, and like.
There's like I think it's an interview halfway through with he sort of grows up with, I think it's Pusha T, and he just sort of like disappears for a little while, and then he comes back and he's like, oh, I was like ready to call it quits, you know, like just another pipe dream kind of thing. And then obviously he gives him this beat and is like, you got like 20 minutes to get to my house, otherwise I'm giving this beat to Jay-Z. And then like I think it's his first solo track, like where it's him featuring Pusha T, and it just blows up. Yeah, it showcases like sort of how it works quite well. Like, you know, I'm by no means like, you know, embedded in the music industry, but like how you've got to be hungry for it, but at the same time you sort of have to respect the process of sort of like, it's not just going to be, you take one step up the ladder and then it's just sort of like, up you go kind of thing. There is sort of like, there are.
Yeah, it's like snakes and
Walls in the
ladders.
way,
There
I
is
guess.
going to be stuff where it's like setbacks and things.
Yeah,
But as
yeah.
long as you keep creating for the sake of loving it, then
Just for the love of the game.
yeah. Not creating, like, it's very clear, like, and they show it through like the suits and the corporations trying to grab his attention and stuff. It's like not creating something for the paycheck and not doing the corporate moves, doing stuff because you really want to do it for the passion of it is always going to be the better move than doing it for a paycheck.
That's another really, really interesting scene as well. Like when he sort of like first sort of ends up in the room with like all the suits, and like I thought it was really, really cool how like obviously they can't name drop people, but like there are just going to be like suits who work for the record labels and stuff that are just sort of like, it's like a cash cow. I'm going to milk you for all you're worth, like get up on the ladder myself, and then, you know, the moment that you're not successful, you're not useful to me, like off you go. See you later.
And they show that of like when he's like really in the turmoil of him, he feels like he's like on a raft in the ocean, and then saying how like those people that were like milking you for all you're worth, as soon as like
They're not there for you.
as soon as things go south, they'll get out of the
just
first,
jetted,
in their dinghy.
That was a really, really interesting scene as well. Like the way it goes from him sort of like feeling underwater in the studio, and then it just sort of blows out, and then he's just like in the middle of the ocean.
In the middle of the ocean, and then I'm pretty sure then that's the transition where it blacks out and then goes to space. That's like that's the bottom of the bottom for that. Yeah.
Yeah, as far as it, like the narrative of the story goes, it's sort of like how he's sort of like, yeah, the scene when he's in space and he's like, is it like Carl Sagan like has a conversation with him again, and he's just sort of like,
Who is Carl Sagan? Astronomer and planetary scientist. Yeah, I loved that. I loved the space scene especially. I thought it was really, really cool.
yeah, well, he's got like he did like an actual like Lego set with Lego.
I'm just looking that up now actually.
It's like a spaceship. Like I looked at it once and I'm just sort of like, yeah, you know, it looks cool, kind of thing. Like when this eventually retires, like if you've got like an unopened version, that's going to be worth like some serious money.
It is.
I'm like, do I want it? Like 20 minutes into the film, I made the decision. I'm like, yeah, next time I'm anywhere near a Lego store, I'm buying one of those.
It's $109.
Never mind.
Which is like 70, 80 quid.
Yeah,
It's very cool. I like it.
It's a lot, and
It's a different kind of set though because of
you do get
the
sets like that.
meaning.
Yeah, you do get sort of like some that are just as a platform. You're gonna get obviously your licensed sets are gonna be more expensive anyway, but you get some come along and they hit the roof with just how popular they are, and you'll get like some sets or some themes that they'll just continually push out. Like the Speed Champions, it's basically just different versions of cards. You actually see them. That's another cool thing that I thought as well. Like, you know, I said like all the sets are built, like everything is built. Like you could like probably physically build that with Lego bricks if you had the instructions.
Yeah.
You see like when he's driving the cars, like the producer, like right at the start, like when they move to Virginia, they're all driving like Ferrari F40s.
Yeah.
And then like when he gets in the car, it's a Toyota Supra. It's like I've got that on my shelf at home. Like it's an actual set. Like I thought like the way that like they're so creative with the way that they use, like obviously that'll already been built kind of thing. So it's just sort of like that is pretty much to scale. Like we know that it fits a minifig in it because we've sold it as a set. Like let's use it in the film.
Yeah.
Which is like really cool. It's almost like it's authentic. It's not just like everything's make believe. Like there's so much like realism to it.
Yeah.
As much as it can be for a Lego film, which is really cool. But yeah, there are like some sets that sort of come along and they just sort of like they're only around for a limited time and then they just sort of like disappear. And when a set retires, trying to get hold of that for a decent price, like unused in the box, it's just crazy.
Oh, it's insane. I remember the first time that happened to me was when I was younger. I adored the Lego Batman video game and had like an old Lego magazine and it showed like the sets and they were very much the sets that you were in the game. And this was like 2 years after they came out and I was like, oh, I really want to get these. Weren't on the Lego store or anywhere. You could get like some of them on eBay, but they were like pre-built, like really expensive. And then we were going to Legoland Windsor and someone told me that there was like this shop there, I think it was called like the Factory, where they would sell like discontinued models and stuff. Like they'd hold on to that old stock and sell it there. And I remember like no matter what our itinerary was, I was like, we need to go there so I can buy the Lego Batman, and it was never there. And it was just like, that was like, I think that when it hit me is like, not every set is like it has exclusivity and stuff, but of kind of like that's a kind of like a moment in time if you have those sets.
Yeah, it's like a cycle. Like some stuff gets retired really quickly, some stuff sticks around for ages. Like the Botanicals collection, for example, like there's some stuff there that are like, you can still get them now, like the Orchid, for example, like massive seller for them, like the bonsai tree. Yeah. You can still walk into Lego and buy those.
Oh yeah.
There's a Birds of Paradise, one of the plants, really nice looking plant. You can't get that anywhere. Like it's a retired product. I hope he does some more collaborations with Lego though, because like he's got the knack for it.
Oh,
like it's really cool.
Yeah.
Like I'm curious to see what, like there's so many different versions of him, like down to like what haircut he's wearing, if he's wearing a hat, like what kit he's got on.
Yeah.
There's one like where he's in like a full Adidas tracksuit. There's another one where he's like wearing Billionaire Boys Club like hoodie with like ripped jeans, like shorts and stuff. And you can see the shoes. You can see the 3 stripes because he's wearing Adidas shoes.
You could easily
really
see,
interested to see what minifig that they'd pack with that.
Yeah, you could easily see them doing like set piece sets, like even like the Daft Punk, like the rocket ship. You can see them doing that, like the rocket ship and the stage with him and Daft Punk.
Like someone actually submitted that to like like Lego Ideas. Someone actually submitted like their like 2007 Alive tour when they're in the Big Pyramid. Someone submitted that as an idea, and I hope to God that the hype for this film sort of carries that. That would just Lego. Just I would pay stupid money for like 2 little Lego Daft Punk figures. So cool. I'm a bit annoyed. Well, I'll say annoyed. It's a bit gutting that like they weren't interviewed.
Yeah, that did seem like a bit of a. It just passed by. Well, it was kind of showing his comeback after his dip, and that was kind of his rocket back up to stardom afterwards.
I think it's crazy as well because like it says it with Drop It Like It's Hot with Snoop, like that was his first #1, but like Get Lucky, like at that point Daft Punk had been around since the 90s.
Yeah.
They'd done, at that point I think they'd done Homework, their 1997 Alive tour, they'd done Daft Club, Discovery, which is the one with Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger in it. In
summary, like I guess to conclude, I think it's really good. I think it's incredible. I think anyone can watch this. I think like the nature of the medium, anyone can watch this. Kids could watch this. Adults could watch this. I think
it's a PG, so you can bring the kids along and not have to worry. But I think what's the word? I'm going off on a meander. The scene with Snoop in.
Yeah.
And it's like obviously Snoop's a big advocate for the weed, and it's just like what's it called, like PG spray. That was really cool. It's just the way that it like.
It's clever with it.
Yeah, like you're saying with the Lego games, like they sort of it's slapstick humor, but there's like sort of things that happen in like the adaptions for them where they can't show, I don't know, someone getting their head chopped off or something quite graphic or visceral or like adult themed. The way that they sort of like take that under like the Lego lens. Ooh, the Lego lens, that's good. So it's still authentic to the characters in there, but like it's Lego-ified. That's not a word. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I think like another way that this was shown was throughout the film it's a PG, so they're allowed a handful of swear words. And throughout the whole film, they're always censoring shit. They're always bleeping it and putting like a poo emoji sticker over the mouth. But then when he's getting emotional with his interview to the director, he says shit twice. It's not censored because it's like it would have been not insensitive, but it would have taken out of the moment to censor it then. And I think that was quite liked how they kept that in as quite a raw moment of him being emotionally vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, super cool. So if you haven't seen it already, go and watch it. As we're recording this, it's the 21st of October. I think it comes to cinemas at the start of November, so in like 2 weeks. Go see it. I'm sure you'll hear a lot about it. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Home Screen Podcast. Thanks again for joining, Ben.
Not a problem. I will just wait in the corner for the next 5 weeks until the next podcast.
Till the next one inevitably rolls around. Additionally, as part of London Film Festival, I also saw 3 other films. I saw Blitz by Steve McQueen, I saw A Real Pain by Jesse Eisenberg, and I saw Bird by Andrea Arnold. I'm going to do a separate episode for those, talking about that. That'll come out after this one. So yeah, there'll be another LFF episode to come in the coming weeks when I get time to edit these.
Part 2.
So thank you for listening to this special London Film Festival edition of the podcast, and we'll see you next time. Bye.